How's it going, everyone? It's Sam. There's a country that's changing their tax code so that way it's very beneficial to hold cryptocurrencies. I think it could actually bring in a lot of investors in that country because you can make so much money and not be taxed on it. And I want to talk about that. I also want to talk about a crypto that I would be very careful of. There's some really worrisome things happening to it, and a lot of other stuff that we have to cover as well in the market. If you don't mind, hit subscribe, turn on that bell notification. I also want to thank New Holland. So they're a partner of the channel. They're actually a hometown brewery. I have one of their shirts on. They're not paying me for this, but they have sponsored videos in the past, and I was just wearing their shirt. So shout out to them. Check out their website, New Holland Brewing. I'll leave a link to it underneath the video. I also want to say I have a video that I'm going to be making on a cryptocurrency here very soon. If you haven't already checked this one out, I would check it out too. I'll leave a link to Bidshop underneath the video, but they're doing some really cool stuff too. They're not paying me to say this, but just really cool. They're backed by KuCoin Labs. They've raised over $1 million, and they have some big things coming. Some big people are going to be talking about them soon. So I will hit on that in a future video, but just wanted to give a heads up. Now, the whole cryptocurrency market's looking pretty good today. I mean, Bitcoin's up 1.3%. The whole market is pretty much sideways, which means dominance is moving up. We're pretty much at a high for dominance, 52.09%. It was just at 59.14%, 52.15% recently, just a few minutes ago. Bitcoin continuing to hold steady while the rest of the market is pushing down for the most part. I mean, there's certain cryptos that are outperforming, like Solana up almost 10% in the last 24 hours, bouncing off a line of support. But overall, the market's bleeding to Bitcoin, and the whole market today is paying attention to some of the news that just came out. GDP in Q1, the actual was 2% versus 1.4% estimated. So this just came out a few hours ago. Huge beat there. Initial jobless claims lower than expected, showing that the economy is pretty strong. PCE prices, actual 4.1% versus 4.2% estimate. And core PCE prices, actual 4.9 versus 5% expected or estimated. Now we have PCE inflation coming tomorrow. This is PCE prices, slightly different, but they're both lower than expected, which is a good thing for the overall economy and for the market. Now, we have some news coming from a couple different countries on crypto. UK passes bill into law recognizing Bitcoin and crypto as regulated financial activity. Now, I'll be honest, this just seems kind of like jargon to me. I don't really understand what that means exactly. I looked it up, but it's hard to understand exactly what they mean, just that they're going to be regulating it. But I thought a lot of these countries already were doing it. So it's kind of weird. A lot of big YouTube and a lot of big YouTube channels and a lot of big Twitter pages are talking about this, but no one's really expanding on what this actually means for crypto. However, something that I can understand is taxes, right? We pay a ton of taxes, and if you hold cryptocurrencies for the long term, it can reduce some of your tax burden. Always consult a tax professional. But Slovakia just lowered taxes on crypto profits, specifically crypto profits. The bill will reduce taxes on the sale of cryptocurrencies held for at least 12 months from as much as 25% down to 7%. Now, I looked it up, and it looks like the majority of capital gains are 19% in the country, but it can be higher too. We have that in the US, where if you make a certain amount, then you get taxed higher even on capital gains. But this only pertains to crypto. The idea of taxing crypto like a stock or any other security naturally brings up questions about how the asset should be defined. The SEC, for example, is solidly in the most crypto assets are securities camp. However, if nations regarded crypto assets as being more akin to fiat currencies or commodities, the tax policies could be far different. The bill will exempt crypto income from a 14% health insurance tax as long as it isn't marked as the business property of an investor, according to the bill. They say that the goal is to reduce the tax burden in connection with the sale of virtual currencies, thereby simplifying their use in everyday life. This passed as a 112-2 vote, which is insane. Some people declined to even vote on it, but that's a large majority of people trying to push cryptocurrency to be more widely used. Now, other countries have a similar Similar idea, Portugal, recognized as a crypto tax haven, has recently opted to adjust its approach in this regard, where they say that instead of having a 28% tax on virtual assets, they're going to make it tax-free for crypto assets. So there are countries that are pushing towards the right side of change, that are trying to become crypto tax havens. And I think this is a great step. At the other side of the spectrum, President Biden just said he's going to make the tax system fair by eliminating loopholes for crypto traders. I'm guessing basically the wash rule, where you can sell a crypto, buy it back at the same price, and then take that as a capital loss. You can't really do that in the stock market. And of course, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not a tax accountant. So talk to your own people about that. But that's the other side of the spectrum. President Biden in the US tries to crack down on crypto while other countries are making it easier and easier to hold and invest. And I think this really makes investors, even if they weren't interested in crypto, probably makes them at least look at crypto a little bit more, realizing, hey, I'm going to have to pay a third the amount of taxes if my assets go up the same amount as a stock. Like if I hold Bitcoin and it goes up 100% versus I hold Tesla and it goes up 100%, I'm going to have to pay significantly less taxes. 7% versus 25%. That's an 18% difference if you're making 100% return. So that can be a huge difference over the long term. Now, we also have not just countries looking at crypto, but states. North Carolina House passes a bill to study if the state should hold Bitcoin on their balance sheet. So they're not necessarily going to buy Bitcoin, but they're going to have a study to see if they should hold Bitcoin, which is pretty interesting, right? Some lawmakers are trying to decide whether it makes sense to start buying it. There is appropriated from the general fund to the Department of State Treasurer the non-reoccurring sum of $50,000 for the 2023 through 2024 fiscal year to conduct the study by this act. So they're putting $50,000 aside to figure out whether it makes sense from a state level to have some Bitcoin insurance. Imagine if every single state started to buy some Bitcoin, maybe put a couple $1 million on in their portfolios, and then some pensions did that. That could cause some buying pressure, right? Countries start doing that even more than they already are. That's just a really interesting thing to think about. And we can see that across the board. People are getting more and more interested. Large companies are getting more and more interested. Now, over the last couple of weeks, we've talked about Prime Trust and their absolute collapse recently. If you haven't seen those videos, I would highly suggest going and checking them out. But basically, they're a custodian that lost access to their wallet, to their crypto assets, and then they tried to take other people's assets and trade to get that money back, and they lost more and more money. TUSD has some of their funds through Prime Trust, so TUSD is one of the largest stablecoins out there, and it looks like they might depeg here soon. I've been saying this for a while, but TUSD, plunge protection, disappeared down from about 25 million down to 6 million, and only at 99 cents. So if you look at this picture, it makes a lot more sense. This is basically the depth chart. This shows how much people are going to be buying at different prices. So there's $6 million that is willing to buy if it falls down to 99 cents. There are people obviously selling this all the time. They're willing to sell at a bit of a loss because it's not at $1. But this went from 25 million to 6 million in a short period of time. So that means that there's not a lot of protection anymore. I mean, if this breaks and people keep on selling, if people continue to cash out and force this number down to zero, it's going to fall down, and then people are going to start buying at 98 cents. But look at the amount of money willing to buy after 99 cents, right? There's 6 million here, 17,000 at 98 cents, 204,000 at 97. And this could just tumble down real quick. I mean, we're talking about less than $1 million, like $500,000 willing to buy under 99 cents. Basically, no one's willing to buy as it falls down. And of course, you're going to have some outliers, right? 100 grand here, 26 grand here. But I would be very worried. If you're in TUSD, I would get out now. I don't see a reason to really own it. If you're outside the US, maybe you want to short it. I don't think that would be the worst thing in the world. It's kind of a interesting trade, right? You could pay for the fees to short or to short on leverage or whatever. And the worst case scenario is it goes back to $1, right? Or $1.01 or something like that. And maybe you could get liquidated on the upside if you get short squeezed. I don't think that's very likely to happen. I don't see a lot of buyers coming in to try to squeeze this up. So the worst case, you go up to $1, you lose a little bit of money, right? And best case, it depegs and you make a lot of money from that. Just kind of an interesting trade. I'm not saying to do that. Of course, do your own due diligence. I'm not doing it myself, but it could be an interesting play. Then some Tesla news. Electrify America announced today it will adopt Tesla's North American Charging Standard, NACS connector, to electrify America and electrify Canada's fast charging networks. Now, this is just one more company that's going to be using the NACS. I don't think it's a huge deal. They don't have a ton of charging units, 3,500. And I mean, you compare that to Tesla, it's a fraction of the charging units. But overall, I think it's just another company that's working with Tesla that's going to be using their charging networks. So overall, good news for Tesla. Of course, Tesla's not really up that much today. The indices in general are kind of sideways. And part of that could be due to some of the results that we got this morning. Whenever there's good news, some people take it as possible bad news because it could mean that the Fed is more likely to raise rates. But at this point, we're at 5%. If they raise another 50 basis points, which is pretty much the max of what people are talking about, 50 basis points. If they raise another 50 basis points, that's only at 10% on top of what we've already raised. That is not as significant as moving from 0 to 50 basis points or from 50 basis points to 100 basis points. The rate of change is really a big part of it. That's what matters. And from here, I think people are more worried about just how long we stay at these high rates. Let me know your thoughts on all this underneath the video, though. Thank you so much for watching. Check out those links underneath the video. And if you want a VPN provider, you can check out the link to NordVPN underneath the video as well.